In Unmatched, there are characters who can move 2, there are characters who can move 3, sometimes there are characters who can move less. But they all have these things where if they can't move a lot, sometimes they have things to make up for it, like having a sidekick. A sidekick, you can position yourself to pin an enemy, or you can just cover more ground. There are people who are ranged, and if they just step on one zone, they can attack from anywhere in that zone. Makes sense, right? And then there are move to solo melee fighters. In a world where we live in, where there's characters like Medusa who are move 3, range, and have multiple sidekicks, there are these characters, that are just by themselves like losers, and they move 2 like they don't go to the gym, and they have no boost values. They start with the same amount of cards as everybody else, so of course, like any competitive player will first think, whether they tell you or not, they will consider fatigue, and if they can't reach you to attack you, if they can't infinitely recur, and if they just want to smack you, they can't. Without maneuvering first and drawing a card, and then running out of cards, and then dying by themselves. And for some reason, those are my favorite types of characters. Maybe because in the 6th grade, I ran a 13-minute mile. Maybe it's because I used to romanticize eating alone at school in the bathroom. Characters like Muldoon do not ask the important questions like, how big am I going to swing when I go adjacent to them? Man, I can't wait for my opponent to attack me first action and then attack me again second action, thus staying adjacent to me so I can punch them back mano a mano. I believe that there are only 5 solo move to melee fighters. Let's list these soldiers right now and give them their flowers for being, not very good in the meta. First of all, we got Invisible Man. Everybody likes Invisible Man. Why? Because he's cool. And he actually has a way to make up for, being moved to. He kind of teleports around, and he has a bunch of scheme cards so he can just stay away. And it's kind of lame almost, like if you think about it. But, he's moved to, so I love you anyways. And who doesn't love the theming of just disappearing? Like, that's so cool. Next, we have a character like Ghost Rider, who makes up for his move to by boost maneuvering, vrooming, and doing 1 damage to the fighter. And that's pretty much in 1v1 the only thing that he can do. So in a way, he's kind of move 4, but if you only vroom, you're gonna fatigue so damn fast. Then we have a sad story, because this is a character I was looking forward to. It had all the right things: move 2, solo melee fighter, and stretchy Miss Marvel. Teen Spirit, I think, was a bit of not the best box ever, and that's okay. But Miss Marvel is the most fun in that box, in my opinion. And she makes up for her move 2 by actually being kind of move 3, because she makes a little hop before she starts her turn, and then she does the T-Rex thing where she can attack from 2 spaces away. And so every move 2 solo melee fighter needs a little help. And we have now maybe the saddest case of a solo move 2 melee fighter, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like I've already said to you, we live in a world where there's characters who pretty much can go wherever they want in the board, have multiple psychics that you can bring back, infinite recursion, and then Dr. Jekyll gets punished when he turns to Mr. Hyde for maneuvering. He takes the damage just for moving around and being moved too. So it's not like he moves 4 and he can pretty much get anywhere. He just moves 2 and just gets hit for it. And they recently, just with a new ruling, just nerfed him even more. My man is really, really struggling here mentally and physically, and none of you are thinking about him, and it's actually kind of sad. And finally, we have She-Hulk. If we look at She-Hulk, in the 1v1 competitive mindset, you might think that she might not be any good, right? Because she only has 1 type of card that has a boost 3. And if you look at her deck, she has a shit ton of draw, which in 1v1, that's not bueno. We don't want to draw a bunch because we're going to die in fatigue. See, She-Hulk has 20 health. So right off the bat, you both got 30 cards. So if you just don't move at all, you win in fatigue. right? So there's like this initial like crap, I gotta make this person lose some health or lose a bunch of cards, especially if you go second. Holy shit. I think most obviously She-Hulk has massive, huge monkey fist me swings. If we're just talking about like combat values or card values, she has a bunch of 5s, she's got a lot of 4s, tons of 4s, and then she can swing up to 9. Ugh! Let's say your opponent does have a lot of passes, definitely won't fatigue you turn 1. I mean, if She-Hulk goes first, she can use her scheme to teleport to the other side of the map, do her leap towards scheme. She's got ways to move. Not only does she have schemes to move around, but she has a card where she can play a defense or attack where it can just force the opponent to stay where they are for the rest of the turn. So then you can pop off She-Hulk's awesome ability, which is pseudo range. She-Hulk's ability is at the beginning of her turn, it doesn't even cost an action. She can throw away one of her cards, and she's got a lot of cards that she's okay with throwing away. And whatever the boost value of that card is that you tossed away, it does that much amount of damage. And she essentially just does a Medusa ping in her zone. Remember that 3 attack card that could be a 9? Well, it also has 3 boost values, so you can do 3 auto damage. So what I like to do is I like to hold on to that card, and they don't know whether you have it or not. So they always have to respect if your first action is an attack, because it could be a 9. All right, cool. She has some strong punches. She can move around. She can do some auto damage. But really, what I think the crown jewel of what she can do is discard. She has a card where if you punch big and you do enough damage, you have to discard 2 random cards. Just discarding 1 random card is horrible. And doing 2 discards, I mean, just ask Achilles how he feels about that. There's this one game that I'm still traumatized by where She-Hulk killed Patroclus with that card, and Achilles had to discard 4 random cards. It was one of the best and worst days of my life because I lost like crazy, but She-Hulk won like crazy. Dude, not only that, but she has this card that's like a little underrated right now called Legalese. And if you lose the combat, you either can choose to both draw a card or you can both discard a card. So, I mean, you have a lot of options to either gain your hand back if you desperately need it, or you can just keep milling their hand, and it's really, really powerful. If you know anything about She-Hulk's deck, you probably are aware of Lady Justice. It is a bullshit card. I mean, it's really hard to justify it. I guess if I had to justify it, it would be like she doesn't have the greatest, most awesome defenses ever, or that many defenses, maybe? And then so you make them lose 2 cards. You could make them lose, I don't know, 2 attacks. Maybe that justifies it, but she has 20 health. I mean, I like the card, but I love She-Hulk, so maybe I'm cuckoo brained. So potentially you're making your opponent lose all of these cards, right? And then if that's not bad enough, she has recursion. Of course she has recursion. And let's say you didn't get to pop off a lot of those cards. They called them out at exactly the right time. They had a lot of counters for it. Well, you can still get a second chance and pulling them off by recurring them. So that's cool and helps her in the fatigue game even longer. She-Hulk was lovingly designed to be aggressive and for the other opponent to have to feel forced to feel afraid to attack She-Hulk. Currently, there haven't been any tournaments with She-Hulk in it. It's my guess that she is at least somewhere in the A tier range. And this would be the first Move 2 solo melee fighter in a long time that would be relevant in the meta. This is an exciting time for me because She-Hulk, I'm going to say it, you could probably guess already, is my favorite character in all of Unmatched so far. She-Hulk was beautifully crafted, and I feel is going to get a lot of hate because she is new and she is very good. She's definitely going to have weaknesses just like most characters. But right now, what I want you to do is I want you to think about the characters who are top tier right now. They're usually full of bullshit. The thing is, I think a lot of characters could use a little bit of bullshit because it makes it feel like crazy when you pop it off and it feels really exciting. In my opinion, the cool thing about She-Hulk's bullshit is she mills a bunch of your cards and she wins in fatigue, not to just be able to run away later, but it is to motivate the opponent to actually come and attack and have a real battle. And for a board game that is based on fighting, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm hoping with the context of the history of Move 2 solo melee fighters that it's just nice to see one actually be really good. Anyways, I'm crazy. I don't know how to play the game correctly. I don't know what I'm talking about. She-Hulk's full of bullshit, and she's the worst character of all time. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great day.